Um, and so in order to distinguish this from the tribe in Israel, they call it the Tuatha De Danann, and they basically invent the goddess Danu or borrow from Hinduism and put it in Celtic mythology, Druidry, as one of the main mother goddesses of Celtic mythology when there's no direct evidence that Danu exists in Celtic mythology until the Christian monks wrote it down in Latin in 1200 AD. I suggest they borrowed that to explain this, but the whole thing wraps around the fact that the root word for river is Dan.
Yeah.
And in 1400 BC, Dan went up and conquered Laish and renamed the river, one of the majorest tributary to the Jordan River, renamed it Dan, and the Jordan River, which is, they say, means the descender, descends from the city of Dan. We know for a fact they renamed Laish Dan, they renamed the river Dan, and that the Jordan River is directly descending. The headwaters of it are in the city of Dan. And so when you talk about the Indo-European root word Dan meaning river, that's where that came from. There's nowhere else to show that it could have come from, possibly.
Yeah.
Furthermore, that's a lock, man. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. I'll keep digging to bring this up, but the fact that Dan renamed the river Dan is where the Proto-Indo-European root word for river comes from.
Yeah.
Everywhere that they went, they renamed the river Dan. Everywhere, all through Europe, they renamed all the rivers Dan. We have a original example of where they started all of that. It's in 1400 BC, recorded in Judges 18, and archaeology confirms it at the site of Tel Dan. They did conquer Laish, which had access to the Mediterranean, but it also was right in the middle between the Mediterranean and the Silk Road to China. They had access to India from Laish. And so all the rivers getting renamed Dan, and this mystery about where did European language come from? I can tell you exactly where it came from, show you the day that it started. All the mythologies for everywhere, including India, China, Japan. I mean, they're called the Danes. The word Dan is in their name. It's Dan in Denmark, which means the land of Dan. And they, in their own mythology, the Norse mythology, they claim their origin from the mythical King Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, I don't have to make stuff up.
And there's even more ammunition in there. What got me is how in the Bible, that story, I never really understood it, where they rolled up onto this guy and he had these little idols on there and they took them.
Yeah, that's Judges 18.
Yeah, and like there's your Norse mythology. Like
yes, this is what I have been screaming for like 4 years now.
Yeah,
they took the teraphim.
Yes,
if you go look that word up according to Indo-European language family, they don't know what it means, and that there's a whole bunch of words they just can't know. No, it means earth angel. Terra means earth. Fem means angel. It's Terra. It's earth angel. It's a direct reference to idols, to the angels that came to earth from heaven in the days of Noah. It's a direct reference to the idols of those fellas. The graven images are Semiramis and Nimrod, who deified themselves after the flood. The angels are bound in chains and thrown in hell. There are no gods on the earth anymore. Who's going to rule over us? Semiramis and Nimrod will claim to be reincarnated from, and there is a little bit of truth to that in the realm of Ham's wife had dirty angel blood. Must have been because the giants after the flood came from her. And so they did have angel blood in their descendancy. They claim to be the ones that had the royal blood to rule the world again. They deified themselves as the reincarnation of the dead angels that are now bound in chains in hell. And that's the graven images. And that's Nimrod and Semiramis. That's Baal and Ashtoreth. That's Osiris and Isis. That's all the deities, male and female, is Nimrod and Semiramis deifying themselves after the flood when the gods were actually chained up in hell. And he took the ephod, which is Judaism. Okay, it's Judaism, and the Levite priest with the Torah mixed it all up into a new religion, and this is Hinduism. It is the Rig Veda. On their way to India, they stopped in Iran, threw that whole empire down. The Aryans arrived in India as the Aryans, because this is Trojan horse style, literally. The Trojan horse is literally recorded in the Iliad as the tribe of Dan doing that, coming up with that idea and executing the idea for the
I
Trojan
didn't know.
horse. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
oh, yes, they are definitely covered in history as
Yeah.
doing all these things.
Yeah.
Furthermore, they are the Persians. And how do I know? Anybody that came in and judged Israel, Dan is the serpent and the judge, okay? The serpent and the judge. Anybody who came in and judged Israel was Dan in disguise as the pagans, because Dan took to the pagans in Judges 18, joined up with them, and mixed in everywhere they went. The Persians continued this. If we can't beat them, join them. It's easier to assimilate into a people's culture and conquer them that way than it is to force your culture and make them assimilate.
Right.
Far easier, far less costly. The Danes, okay, they got hired as mercenaries all over the world, ended up taking over the places that they would give when they realized we are the muscle and nobody can stop us, and this place is all full of wealth. But they didn't come as Danes and stay as Danes and make everybody else become Danes. They would adopt the local clothing, the local customs. They worked their mythology into the local mythology because it did match, and they would say, hey, listen, we're not different. Look at this. And in that way, they were able to assimilate into the other cultures, but also influence them with writing systems and governments and religion. And it's Trojan horse theory, okay? And so that is what happened all over the world. Started in Laish in 1400 BC, Judges 18, and can be shown to have traveled all over the world from there.
And I actually just triggered a memory in that too. What you just said is, I think, there's proof of that as well, is because how they would go in and not transfer, they would go in and hijack. So when you go in and you start looking around, when the first images of Jesus looking like a Viking pegged to a cross was right about the time when they were, I think it was the Danes were cleaning up England or all these other places where they, or maybe it was another place they were going in there or whatever.
Sure. Well, having the Levite priest, which had the Torah,
right,
and like the prophecies for Christ they already had the prophecies for Christ. The earliest one, the first one is in Genesis when they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Okay. They already had prophecies of Christ. So in Norse mythology, you have Odin hanging on a tree. But before the Germanic tribes make it into that part of the world, you have cursed is every man that hangs on a tree from the Old Testament, the prophet of Isaiah, right? The prophet Isaiah. And so the whole hang on a tree thing has an origin. And the earliest one that can be shown is, in my opinion, in the Old Testament. All of that Norse mythology, like when the Vikings got into England, what they discovered is that they might have called him Odin, but the Anglo-Saxons, who were their relatives, because they're all Germanic tribes, I mean, they were all related when they came. Some of them came up this way, some of them came up this way, but they were all related. The Germanic tribes, of which the Norse or the Danes are.
Subscribe now and turn on the notifications to join us on this extraordinary journey into the unknown.